He was one of the most respected members of the Jedi Order. He trained Qui-gon Jinn, who in turn taught Obi-Wan. Taking up the mantle of Darth Tyranus, he transitioned over to the Sith. But what if Count Dooku had remained loyal to the Jedi Order? Even in his old age, Count Dooku was chosen as the next apprentice of Darth Sidious, aka Emperor Palpatine. Succeeding Darth Maul as the Sith Lord's right-hand man, what does that tell you about his raw power? But before his fall to the dark side, Dooku was a valued member of the Jedi Order, having been trained by Yoda himself. As we've seen in Attack of the Clones and, the Clone Wars, he was more than capable of handling the best of the best. In the prequels, he is portrayed as a cunning Sith Lord, a guy who can take on anybody in a duel but will quickly bail if he senses defeat. He's arguably the most powerful apprentice Sidious had until Darth Vader. When we first see him in Attack of the Clones, George Lucas plays Dooku off as a former Jedi who became disillusioned with the Order and the Council, so he defected to the Sith and became the leader of the CIS, the Confederacy of Independent Systems. The Clone Wars gave us a little bit more of a backstory of Dooku's activities between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, showing Ventress as his own apprentice and Savage Opress for a brief time. You often hear people ask, what would happen if Anakin didn't turn to the dark side? But what if Count Dooku didn't turn to the dark side? Now before we get into these details, you might as well subscribe now while you're ahead if you're a fan of the Star Wars universe. Now, for starters, there would have been no apprentice for Darth Sidious. Shortly after Darth Maul's demise in The Phantom Menace, Sidious searched for a new apprentice while also plotting to take over the Galactic Senate. At the same time, Dooku had left the Jedi Order and becoming frustrated with the Senate's corruption and the Order's decisions, but it was Qui-Gon Jinn's death that pushed Dooku to leave the Jedi Order. The death of his former apprentice took a toll on Dooku, who had since relocated to his own planet of Serenino. Somewhere along the lines, Sidious contacted Dooku and convinced him to turn to the dark side. Now, Dooku, wanting more power, took up the title of Darth Tyanus. Now, if he had stayed exiled in Sereno or stayed with the Order, Sidious would have been without an apprentice. Knowing the Dark Lord, he probably would have, tried to find a replacement holder, as Anakin was still too young to approach. Going solo, the difficulty that Sidious would have faced trying to start the Clone Wars would have skyrocketed without someone like Dooku. The Clone Wars would not have probably happened at all. Without Dooku's influence, who was the leader of the CIS, Sidious's plan to divide the galaxy into two factions may not have come to fruition. The Sith Lord needed somebody like Dooku to be the face of the Separatists so that he could focus on carrying out his plan to control the Senate. The Clone Wars kicked off the Battle of Geonosis, which would have occurred if Dooku hadn't kidnapped Obi-Wan. Now, more than likely, Sidious would have found another apprentice, but could they have been as convincing as Count Dooku to the other Separatist leaders? Anakin Skywalker might have been granted the rank of Master if Dooku was still in the Jedi Order. Imagine Dooku sitting on the Jedi Council along with Yoda, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan, and the others. As we saw in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, he was impressed with Anakin's abilities. With Dooku sitting on the council, he might have pushed for Anakin to be given the title of Master. In turn, there would have been no Darth Vader, no Galactic Empire, and so on. Now, Sidious wouldn't have gotten away with Windu's murder, and he probably would have been detained by Anakin and the other Masters. You always have to think of the what-if moments in life, and I think if Count Dooku stayed on the path of the Jedi, things may have been different. But as always, this is Sith Lord 7. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give the video a like, and tell me, what you may have thought if Dooku would have stayed, if that would even change anything whatsoever. But until then, I'll see you later.